Welcome to the Thrive Master Show. On this episode, we have Hans Phillips. Hans consults with high performing professionals and leaders to reach new levels of power, results, and satisfaction in the areas of life most important to them. You can find Hans at ontoco.com, ontoco.com.
Hans, welcome to the Thrive Master Show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Glad to have you on. The first question I'm starting off is, if you had to take all the wisdom and the success you've acquired, what would you give a master class on?
It's an interesting concept, and it's pretty simple. Basically, the foundation for success. I just turned 62 weeks ago, and I woke up when I was about 15 years old and realized, okay, I need to avail myself of knowledge, because the family I grew up in, the culture that I was living in, and the level of my intellect, it was not a match. I could see some things were missing, and I needed to educate myself because I wasn't getting that education at school. And so I've been at it for 45 years and have figured out 5 different key pieces that you want to have in order to be successful, but also enjoy the process as you move towards success. However you define success, I'm not just talking about money and cars and boats and houses and whatever, but whatever your definition of success is, you want to enjoy the process and you want to enjoy the arrival as well.
So you mentioned the foundational pieces of success. Now let's go back to your childhood and connect some dots. Where were you born and what stands out for you?
So I was born in Atlanta, Georgia. My mother and father fell in love in college. It quickly fell apart. My sister was 2 years older than me, and my mother actually left when I was 6 months old. I went into foster care with my sister for 3 months, and then we were bounced around to different friends. And then my father hired the cleaning lady to be our nanny. So it was a rough start, and I imagined that I missed my parents a lot, and that I wondered where they were and why this was happening to me. And a lot of this is pre-verbal, so can't even put language to it. And then my father got my stepmother pregnant with my brother Michael, and did the right thing and married her, but it was not a good marriage. And so that was 10 years of stress and pressure and psychological, emotional, and physical torment. It was not good. And then popped out the other end of that, went with my father when the divorce happened. My sister and I went with my father, and we went from lockdown, martial law, to latchkey, total freedom, and basically raised ourselves, which is not good for children. And ran the streets, didn't get in too much trouble. My sister is as smart as I am, if not smarter. And we survived, we got through. And then neither one of us very interested in college, because we hadn't really been met intellectually in regular school. So took a while for her to go to college, took a while for me to go to college. I ended up going to 3 different colleges and universities, didn't graduate from any of them, only to discover that I was an entrepreneur. So started my first company and had some success, and then discovered executive consulting and have been doing that for 30 years.
Now you mentioned there was the chaos of too much structure, let's say, and then not enough. How did you find some footing in all of that? Was it just trial and error, so to speak, going forward?
Well, I survived the first 10 years. And then it was so painful that I spent the next 10 years just seeking pleasure, any form of pleasure that I could find. And luckily, I knew that how I was with a half gallon of Rocky Road ice cream was probably how I was going to be with alcohol or drugs. So I was like, you probably should stay away from alcohol and drugs, Hans. And what I didn't realize is that if you're raised in dysfunction, that overdoing things, it can be a coping mechanism, but also withholding things from yourself, starving yourself, being hypervigilant or hypercritical can be a coping mechanism as well. So became a vegetarian, never been high or drunk in my life, and that kind of controlling piece, it took me another 30 years to unravel.
Mhm. Now, what was the moment or place that you would say, or maybe a mentor that led you towards unraveling some of this chaos?
Yeah. So my father realized I was failing junior high
Mhm.
and that I was probably going to fail high school. And so he went looking for an alternative education, found it. He was out of the district, so he had to do some convincing, but he got me into this school, and it was 150 students and 7 staff members. So there was a Marxist, there was a feminist, there were 2 Scientologists. It was a mixed bag, but it was all about, here's what we know, take what you like and work with it, keep the stuff that works for you, throw the rest out the window. And I was like, okay, now you're talking. That's an education I
Mhm.
can get behind. And it
Yes.
was physical and emotional and mental, and there was sharing every morning. You could stand up in front of the whole school and share yourself, and everybody clapped when you sat back down. Everybody hugged you when they, it was just open and warm and authentic. And I was like, okay, this is what's possible in life. So that had me begin my journey to finding my real, true, and beautiful self and having an authentic experience of life.
Now, if somebody didn't have a chance to be put in that environment where your dad helped, what would you recommend people do to discover their true self?
Super. So there's 2 things. One is you've got to turn and face the stuff from the past. My therapist says that about 96% of us were raised in a dysfunctional household, just not normal functioning. It's not a judgment. It's just most of us, we just, our legacy of our parents just sort of carries forward, and we're doing the same as them or the opposite of them, but not really choosing healthy childhood development. And so you've got to turn and face that stuff. You can reparent yourself. It's amazing. You can literally grow the parts of yourself up that were stuck, that are hiding, that got wounded, that have turned into something, bright and shiny or dark and nasty. You can heal those parts of yourself. Can be through therapy, but there's lots of healing modalities. But turn and face that stuff, because you're just dragging it with you. It's the filter through which you're living your life, whether you know it or not. And a part of our coping mechanism is denial. So you can point right to something in me, and if I'm in denial about it, I'm like, nope, I don't see that. Right?
Yeah.
So piercing that denial, getting at the dysfunction, healing that wounded inner child stuff, I think is really important. And then availing yourself of transformational technology that's out there. There's 6, 8, or 10 companies that are doing transformational work where you can actually see the automaticity of human being. You can get to the core of who you actually are. You can become present in a moment, and you can use language to create things as opposed to just describe things, and on and on and on. We could spend hours just talking about transformation, but
That's right.
transformational technology is real. The combination of healing the past and getting good at being present and creating a future, to me, that's just heaven on earth.
Now, you mentioned the power of language. Is that one of the clear ways that people can pay attention to as far as what they're bringing into their life, how they're showing up?
Sure. But I will point to whatever the context is that you're speaking from, that context is decisive. So I could take somebody from a 3rd world country and put them into my life, and they would just rock it, because the context of where they came from and all of the opportunities that my life presents, I don't see all the opportunities. I don't take advantage of all the opportunities. I'm kind of complacent. I'm kind of used to it. But the context that they came from, of having nothing, to, wow, I have all these resources and all this support, they would just rock it. So yes, language is powerful, but you've got to get at revealing the context that you're coming from, that you're speaking from, listening from, looking from. And it's like, if you've ever had a near death or a near life experience, you have this new awareness, and it lasts for a day or a minute or a month or whatever, but it slowly collapses back in on itself. And so that's the power of transformational work, is that you can generate that near life, near death aha moment again and again and again without having to have a near life or a near death moment. So language is critical, but where you're speaking from, getting some facility with, shifting your context so you're speaking from the most powerful place possible. I think that's important.
Now, going forward, you mentioned your dad helped put you in an environment that suited you. was there somebody else that put you in more alignment?
I've
moving towards your
met
success?
mentors throughout the years. My first coach, a guy named Tex Johnston from Johnston Consulting, had a big impact on me. I've been doing inner child work for 10 years now, and my sponsor had a big impact on me. Adultchildren.org is the 12-step work. And so I've allowed people to mentor me over the years, knowing that their wisdom and their guidance speeds up my process. So met a guy 20 years ago who was doing amazing work, and then relapsed into some old behavior, and then was just coming out of that when I met him. And sort of together, we moved into this next part of his life and mine. He has mentored me for the next 20 years. So I never know where the mentors are going to come from, but I do know that allowing people to train you, teach you, coach you, guide you is an important part of this. And there's dynamics with mentors. If the mentor doesn't have a sense of themselves and they're just being helpful, that kind of feeds the ego. So you've got to be careful about that. You've got to be careful about killing off the mentor in order to separate and be yourself. A lot of people do that. I don't need you anymore, and you're an old fool. Like, none of that stuff's necessary, but those human dynamics come into that relationship if you don't manage it.
Now, how have you navigated those dynamics?
Well, I've disappointed some people. I've supported some people. I've inspired some people. If you're intent on torpedoing the mentoring relationship, I'm not going to stop you. If that's a part of your path and your process, and you've got to diminish me or invalidate our time together in order to be yourself, okay, I'll see you somewhere down the road. I know the impact that I make, and I mentor people sometimes for an hour, sometimes for 10 years, and I never know. But the opportunity for me as an older person is my mentoring is really the only impact I'm going to leave behind. I mean, the relationships that I have with people, that's it. And the older people get, the more they realize, oh, relationship's it. Not anything I made, not any street sign, not material, but relationships. So it's my pleasure and my honor to mentor people.
Now, would you say, the saying, once the student is ready, the teacher will show up? Is it kind of like that? Would you?
Yeah, I'm more and more in the last 5 or so years. I've been about being natural and allowing growth and evolution to happen, and having faith that this natural environment that we're in is going to provide me with the resources that I need to evolve. Because this planet likes evolution, and I'm an evolutionary agent, and I'm evolving as an evolutionary agent. And so, yes, I see and attract and interact with things that are going to move me to the next level of evolution. I used to get grumpy about it, like, oh, I like knowing everything. I don't know anything about that next level, but over time it's just like, oh, we're going to the next level. All right, buckle your seatbelts and away we go. So there are a number of things right now in my life that are taking a long time to unfold, but it's giving me time to be calm and prepare and be patient, which are all good things for me. And we'll see what wants to occur, what wants to naturally unfold. And I'm not invested in any of it. And if some of it happens, great. If none of it happens, I'm okay, because there'll be something next. And if all of it happens, awesome. But just letting the thing unfold, letting it be natural.
So I'm going to oversimplify what you said using a parent-child relationship, where I've noticed with myself now, as I'm about to have the third one, not only are the kids going through different phases, but you as the parent is going through different phases. And the more you welcome that, instead of like, oh, I am this almighty, quote unquote, God, I have this power. Instead of welcoming the phases, it works so much better.
Yes, indeed. And people have this idea that they need to know parenting, but your child and you are going to figure out parenting along the way. And nobody knows what they're doing. Everybody's doing the best they can. Some people are doing it better than others. But boy, my son, as he grew, I learned lesson after lesson after lesson from interacting with him. And the big difference between me and how I was raised, me raising him and how I was raised, is I apologized to him when I made mistakes, because as a parent, I was making mistakes. nobody ever apologized to me in my childhood. Grave mistakes were made and nobody ever said, I'm sorry. So I think it was really healthy for him to see, oh, you're a man, you're a person. And you made a mistake and you cleaned it up, and that left our relationship intact. I didn't have to be perfect, because as of about 10 years old, he started to get clear. Oh, you don't actually know everything. You're not actually a god. He hit his first home run when he was about 12 years old, 11 years old. And as I was proud as punch, I got it on tape. It was just amazing, right? And as we were driving home, I said to him, son, well, it's official. You're a better baseball player than your father ever was. And he said, Dad, I think that was true before I hit the home run. I was like, oh, you don't have to say it. It's true, but you don't have to say it, kid. So,
does he get the humor from you or from your wife?
You know, he's an introverted extrovert like my wife. So if he knows you, he's totally expressive. And if he doesn't, he's kind of withdrawn. But we both have a pretty good sense of humor. And he's had it for a long time. We were walking through a store and he was about 8 years old, and it was a clothing section, and there was a brassiere hanging over a rack of clothes. We weren't in the lingerie section. We were just in a regular clothing, and we walked by, and Morgan turns to me and says, decisions were made. I was just like, that's hilarious, kid. That's freaking hilarious. So
now, as I believe I heard you're approaching level 60 or moving towards it.
60 years old as of 2 weeks ago.
Oh, wow. Happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
And one 88-year-old man that I used to be around, he said, I'm not 88-year-old, I'm level 88.
Well, I'm halfway to where I want to be. So things are going really well.
Wow. That's a good vision going forward. So now, as you are in your wise years and giving wisdom to other people, including here, what has changed as far as the fundamentals for yourself? Like, is it now that you're grounded, you're ready to give the most to others?
I've definitely gotten calmer, more peaceful, more centered. I confused intensity with presence for many years. I realize that now, that I am very smart and very dynamic and very powerful, and that I was thinking that was presence, but that actually wasn't presence. This is presence, right? I'm actually fully here. There's nothing else going on except for this moment with you. And there was nothing wrong with what I was doing before, but I confused it, right? So I'm good. I'm happy. I'm satisfied. I'm fulfilled. I have creativity in my life. I have love in my life, and there are some radical changes going on right now. So there's a lot of disruption happening. I'm going to explore some anger that I've had for all of my life. I was just in therapy yesterday, and it's deep and it's profound, and I have not tapped into it. So I'm going to find a safe place to do that, and a person to guide me into that and experience that anger, because it is present. I'm angry about a lot of things that I just haven't been angry about before. I haven't been aware of that anger piece. So it's an interesting time, and I've sort of withdrawn into myself in a good way. I'm taking weekly drives where I'm just gone for 24 hours. I drive to the middle of California, stopping in little towns, taking photographs, listening to whatever music I want to. And all of that just so feeds me. I'm a visual person. I love taking pictures. I love music. I love driving. And so I'm taking a full day a week, and I've been doing that for coming up on 3 months. And the interesting thing for me was early in my career, I wanted to work with wealthy and successful and famous people, because I thought, boy, if they could get this, then they could make a big difference on the planet. But a lot of times those folks, they're good at 1, 2, or 3 things, and they're just kind of stuck in those 1, 2, or 3 things, and they're not going to make as big a difference as they could. And that's just the way it is. And they have a hard time listening because they're wealthy or successful or famous. And they're like, well, why should I listen to you? And so I coached a guy who had 50 collector's cars in a warehouse that he never drove.
Wow.
Right? And he has all the toys, and he's not playing with them, and he doesn't want to talk about any of them. I was like, whoa. So I don't have 5 cars in my driveway, but I've got a car that I can go drive, and it's a truck, so it's not that much fun to drive, but it takes me to places that I've never been before, And I'm like, I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to take that weekly drive because I've designed my life to have time. I'm going to use one of those days to go do that. So it's been really, really fun. Fed my soul in a way that I haven't fed it in a long time.
Now you've hit on something now that made me think of something else. You said you've designed your life. Is that like one of the secrets, not only for success, but also aligning all the chaos you had in the past? Like if you never design, all the potential chaos can come in.
Yeah. So the challenge is to not react to the chaos by doing control. Right.
Okay.
That's what a lot of people do, is they either create more chaos or they get really controlling. And neither one of those are going to lead to fun, satisfaction, power, because they're a reaction to a context from the past, which creates that context in the present and the future. So to me, a designed life is, I have a vision and I know that I have to take care of myself along the way to realize that vision, and that I want to enjoy the day, and that I need structure to support me to get to that vision. And so I utilize people and things, processes to support me. And then I've got to be willing to encounter challenges, deal with problems, deal with people, circumstances, things. But I've got my life set up where I'm not victimized by anything. I'm not leaking energy anywhere. And again, I'm 60. I've been doing this for a long time. But you can literally design and practice having a designed life, and then just fine tune as you go, so that every Sunday morning starts at 5 a.m. and you're having a cup of tea and you're sitting in the window and you're reading a book for 2 hours because nobody's awake at 5 a.m. Every Monday night, you take your partner out for a date and make sure there's love and romance and intimacy in your life every single week without the kids, right? And so your life design is completely up to you. But you want to make sure that you're not trying to overcome or compensate for something that was missing or wrong in the past. You want to actually decide, okay, well, if I could design it any way I want, how would I design it? Now, probably there's going to be a good sized gap between what you design and what you got now.
Yes.
And so now you've got an emotional and a psychological and perhaps physiological reaction to, whoa, that's a big gap. But you just start chipping away at it a day at a time, a week at a time, a minute at a time. And before you know it, your life is more designed than not. Most people are kind of at the effect of people, circumstances, things, thoughts, feelings, body sensations. And they're like, well, I can't design much in the face of all that, but you can. You can actually start taking all of that apart.
Yes, I remember as you were describing going to the extreme opposite, I remember saying to myself, I'm not going to be like my parents. I'm just going to be the total opposite. And then at some moment, I realized, well, wait a second, it wasn't all bad, right? So let's see what was good. And let's see what I can take with me, so to speak, going forward. And it seems like, that the middle way is the...
That's right. That's right. If you can find that middle ground, that's the adventure of life. Because your parents did give you stuff, either by example or omission, that is helpful. But living a life in reaction to somebody else's life, that's definitely not a designed life. That's not a life that you choose.
Wonderful. Now let's get back to your zone of genius. How are you helping people today? Is it one-on-one? Is it groups? Is it posting?
It's been a lot of different things over time. I write, and that writing goes out to a list of people. I do Facebook Lives, that goes out to my community. And I do work mostly one-on-one. I like the boutique business. I've had a seminar company before. I've done workshops before, but I really like the one-on-one because I can go as fast as the person will let both of us go. And that's really fun for me. And the fundamentals are that most of us, the fabric of our life is not coming together in the way that we want to. And so helping people, supporting people to reintegrate and be natural and knit that fabric back together in a way that's really pleasing. It takes practice to do it. It's uncomfortable to do it, but we were born integrated. We were born whole. And then we get broken over time. We get disintegrated over time. But our natural state is wholeness and presence, power and possibility. And so helping people return to their natural state. I don't know what their natural state is. It's theirs, but guiding them to do the work that it takes to put things into a foundation that allows them to see and to hear and to speak in a way that is, again, pleasing, and that creates results that they want. And it's not without its challenges, but when the challenges are coming from the future rather than problems from the past, it's a very different experience.
Mhm. Now, how have you found working one-on-one, as you said, with people? Is it more like long-term base, medium-term base, or is it as per need?
So I don't know if you've ever changed your set weight, the weight that your body is.
Yes.
If you try to change the weight that your body is comfortable in, it takes a lot. You have to change your psychology, you have to change your emotions, you have to shift your physiology, you have to shift your surroundings and who you associate with and how you associate with them. And science says that it takes a year to change your set weight, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I like to ask people is, let's take a year to shift who you're being, how you're being, the action that you're in, and the results that you're producing. So that's what I like out of the pandemic. You know, it's gone down to 3 months. That's all that people are willing to commit to, because the future is just so uncertain. But no, this is not a Band-Aid. People come to me and just want one session. I'm like, well, you can have it, but the likelihood of you taking the powerful stuff I give you and then practicing it inside of your current context, inside of your current structure or lack of structure, is not that high. So I like, just like going to the gym, you meet with a trainer and then you do the exercises the rest of the week. That's effective. Going once a week and only exercising once a week, you're not going to get fit.
Yeah, that's a good metaphor as comparison. Now, this is a little bit of a personal question. So we've both been in the 12-step program space. And one of the key things that's as a focus is God, let's say. However you describe
or higher power. Yeah,
higher power.
Right.
Let's just put it out. Higher power. Why is that only present in the 12-step programs when people hit the fan, but not in the everyday moving towards thriving? Now, you said designed life. Is there something beyond the designed life that guides you?
Yeah, for sure. I'm informed by nature. I'm informed by my relationship to the higher power that I believe in, and for me, that's love. And I've worked with people who don't have a spiritual belief, and that's fine. It's a possible way of being on the planet. But I sure hope they have a relationship to nature, something bigger than themselves, something outside of themselves, something that's profound, something that's infinite, because there's a humility to that, a grace and a gratitude to that doesn't happen from the me, myself, I world of ego and identity. And so we've got challenges because organized religion has a lot of problems, right? Sometimes just spirituality is pretty woo-woo. But I strongly believe that each one of us has a path to our connection with whatever this is, and you can be on that path or not. But a life connected to the divine, I strongly urge people to have that, and it is okay if they don't. But to me, my ego, my identity, wants to be alone, wants to be separate, and it's just a very small conversation. So, and a lot of it's about chocolate. Apparently, it's weird.
The reason I bring this up is it's related to the COVID situation now, and I've talked to a few people who were, let's say, religious or have a higher power in their practice, and they have a different kind of attitude towards it. As far as they say, well, it's not in our hands, so to speak. It's like you posted something recently. It said the job of God is already taken. So if we're upset of what's going on, it's kind of like being upset at the higher power. So this situation, I've seen the people who had some higher power presence are kind of moving through it in a better way.
It's helpful. It's helpful. And I don't know better. It's just helpful.
Yes, helpful. Okay.
Belief is based on evidence. Faith is based on no evidence, and the ability to have faith. For me, even if it's nature, like I have faith in nature. I have faith in nature.
Yes.
I trust nature. That's helpful to me as a human being. I'm not alone. And the folks that I know who are alone, who they don't have faith, there's no higher power, there's no connection to the divine, even in a natural form, it's just kind of a lonely existence and kind of boring. That's just their intellect and their ego, going back and forth. So I think it's a challenge to let go, because we're scared of losing ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to me, I'm just invited to be my best self again and again and again.
Yeah.
And if I accept that invitation, life is very interesting. I don't have to make life interesting. It is interesting.
And you don't have to control everything.
I don't have to control anything. Hey, if I just put a plug in, there's a book called The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer that is
Yes.
all about just allowing yourself to, I have an intention, I have a vision, but surrendering to the support and the interactions that can occur. I've been surrendering for over 2 years. It's going great.
That's the
Because I was
first
trying
book.
to control it before.
That's the first book I've read twice.
Oh, very good. Yeah, really good. He does.
So
great
let's
work.
wrap this up. How can people connect with you? What's the best way they can reach out to Hans?
Terrific. There are a lot of forms, questions, and processes and stuff on my website that people can do without ever interacting with me. They can just go check it out. And that's ontoco.com, ontoco.com. And the forms button is at the bottom of every page. So they can kind of explore the website and explore those forms, answer some of the questions and reflect on themselves. And then there's also a button on there if they want a complimentary appointment. I'm happy to talk to people. There's no cost or pressure in that first conversation. I learned many years ago, my job is to talk to whoever shows up. And I've been supported and have a delightful lifestyle. I worked a 3-day week for 10 years, and I've got a kid in college, so I'm working 4 days a week now. But I love my life, and I'm just happy to support people in whatever's the next part of their path. So,
Hans, I'm glad you showed up for this conversation.